makes a duck blur might solve a mystery or rewrite history.
Hey guys, good evening and welcome to my exciting channel. We're discussing Mandela effects and the life. Thanks for joining me today as we uncover the mysteries of the Mandela effect itself and find out the true meaning of it all. We must discover what is really happening, what is really going on here.
What difference does that make? This was a dream, a fantasy. I mean, you said just...
Shut up, Offsetter, and tell me where the ticket is.
The Paranormal Podcast is brought to you by Gaia, the streaming TV service dedicated to exploring the cutting edge of metaphysics, ancient wisdom, and the unexplained. 5,000 years of wisdom on demand. Get your first month for only 99 cents. Visit Gaia.com/Jim. That's Gaia.com/Jim to see what's happening on the largest consciousness media streaming platform in the world. Thanks, Gaia.
This is the Paranormal Podcast with Jim Harold.
Welcome to the Paranormal Podcast. I am Jim Harold and so glad to be with you today. And it is a red letter day because today is the 500th episode of the Paranormal Podcast. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one listening, whether you started listening way back in 2005 or you just started listening today. I really appreciate it. Now, people say, Jim, what are you going to do for your 500th episode? And on one hand, I think we need to do the same kind of show that got us to 500 episodes and talk about some great paranormal stuff and paranormal subjects. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk about the Mandela Effect with Stasha Eriksen, which I'm very fascinated by. We're going to talk to Star Casas about old-fashioned conjuring, which I'm not much of a conjurer, but I'm always interested in learning about these sorts of things. But then what we're going to do, that way you get your normal show, but the third segment of the show is just going to be kind of me talking about the last 12 years. And I did an episode years ago about some of my thoughts on the paranormal for the campfire, and that was very popular. So I thought I would kind of reprise something like that and talk to you about some of my ideas in case you ever wondered what I thought and what I think about the paranormal. But first, let's get a couple of great interviews in because that's what the Paranormal Podcast is. And if we didn't do that, it really wouldn't be an episode of the Paranormal Podcast. So let's start with one of my favorite topics. Is it Berenstein? Is it Berenstein? Is it Berenstain? We're going to find out. We're going to talk about the Mandela Effect. And here it is. I am excited for today's show. Now, we've done a program once on this, but geez, I think we should do maybe 5 or 6 programs a year on this because this, to me, is one of the most interesting things that has just really come to the surface over the last few years. Many people are noticing it. I've noticed it in my life. My wife says all the time, the Mandela Effect, when something strange happens. Yes, we're going to talk about that Mandela Effect. There's a recent book out called The Mandela Effect, Everything is Changing. And we have the author of said book, Stasha Eriksen, on the line from Norway. And we're going to talk about this fascinating topic with Stasha. She's a researcher, spiritual teacher, author, and student of theology from Los Angeles, California. However, today she's phoning in from Norway, where she lives half of the year with her family, cats, and piles of snow. Stasha is now composing written works from her numerous years as a spiritual counselor and teacher into a series of short science fiction novels and research-based novels of a spiritual nature. You can visit her website at StashaEriksen.com. Stasha, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm so glad to be here. I really appreciate you having me on the show, and it is certainly an interesting topic. So I feel honored to be able to speak on behalf of this phenomenon.
Well, we're glad to talk to you. And I have to ask the obvious question before we get to the Mandela Effect. What is the weather today, August 22nd? What is it like in Norway?
It is gorgeous. In the summertime, we have the midnight sun. So we have sun from around 2 o'clock in the morning until about midnight every night. So it's blazing, beautiful, gorgeous sun today.
Excellent. That sounds
You'd
great.
love it.
Well, a great day to talk about the Mandela Effect. So what got you, well, let's start from the beginning. Maybe there are people out there who's like, the Mandela Effect. What is the Mandela Effect? So We'll get it right from the expert's mouth. What is the Mandela effect?
Okay, well, there's many different definitions of it at this point because the mainstream media and some other people are trying to jump on the bandwagon and kind of define it for us. But technically, the Mandela effect is kind of like a symptom where you are able to see that that reality as we know it has changed. Some of the most significant things that people have noticed that have changed have been elements from history, such as the JFK assassination, very famous people's deaths, people that believed to have died many years ago are now still walking the streets, or there's been announcements of somebody dying more than once. There's a little smaller, more insignificant things as well, like logo changes, people's names changing. But essentially what's happening is that hundreds of thousands of people are having memories that they remember things one particular way. And then the other half of the world seems to remember things a totally opposite way. And those of us that have the Mandela effect, we've taken it into our own hands to start researching our memories as we remember them and collecting as much as what we call residual evidence, any proof, any old newspaper clippings, any old dolls, anything that we can get our hands on to try to prove that our memories are not something as simple as a false misremembering of memory, but that we know these things happened, and we want to get to the bottom of what could be changing reality as we know it. So that's essentially the Mandela effect in a quick nutshell, but it's very hard to summarize.
And to me, it's particularly maddening because I'll use the Berenstain Bears example, which is probably, I'm guessing, one of the more famous ones other than the idea of Nelson Mandela, which it's named after. But the Berenstain Bears, where I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, most people remember that being spelled with E's, Berenstain Bears.
Yes.
But now it's with an A. And countless people, probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people say that was spelled with E's. And then they run to maybe they still have their childhood books. Maybe they passed them along to their kids. They go look at the bookshelf and it's an A, but it's like, wait, I remember that being an E. It's particularly maddening to try to suss out because when you go back and look for documentation, if I'm correct, it always reverts to what you think didn't happen. Is that correct?
Yes, and that has been the biggest struggle for us researchers is to try to scrub the internet and try to find proof of how people remember things. Now, some of the best ways that you can actually find evidence of how things used to be, it tends to be like artistic representations. You'll find a lot of people who will have drawn their favorite character from Star Wars, for instance. One of the biggest Mandela effects is that C-3PO, the robot, used to always be all gold. Now, when you look at C-3PO, he has one silver leg. So when I was working on that,
I didn't even know
character. Oh yes, there's so many, Jim. I can't even keep up with it all. And so I had to literally just find artist representations that I could find online of people with him all gold or things of that nature. So it's the research aspect of it, having Mandela effect's one thing, but the research aspect is very, very difficult, which was really how I ended up getting the book put together. It's kind of a miracle because I tried to just really get a collection of everybody's before and after memories, and then I had to scrub the internet to just try to find little traces of proof. Now, they are out there, but it's definitely a full-time job to try to find our old memories. So it's very frustrating, and the Berenstain Bears thing happened to me too. The first video I ever made on my YouTube channel, that was the one that came across my path, and I was blown away by it. My parents read me those books every night as a kid, and I was a real spelling bee nerd, and I was really good at knowing how to spell and read and stuff like that. So that one really, really blew my mind. I knew for a fact it was Berenstain with an E, not an A. And when I checked the internet and everybody and their mother remembered it the same way that I did, I thought, okay, what is going on here? It's almost undeniable at this point, and there's been so many changes that I've been able to record just in the first book that I already have enough volumes that I'm working on a volume 2 and 3 because daily I have clients and people come to me sending me their new Mandela effects that they found, and there's so many I almost can't even keep up with it. It's really a full-time job.
Well, you know, it's
really is.
You really blew my mind with this C3PO, because if somebody had come to me this morning and said, C3PO, what color is he? And I'll bet you $1,000. I'm like, well, hey, I'll be glad to take your money. He's all gold.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello. And we all remember that. You know, I'm old enough that I was in Star Wars in the movie theater when it came out as a child. And these are my, you know, we hold tight to our memories. And that's why the Mandela effect can be so frustrating for people, but yet also so easy for them to accept. Because on another Star Wars note, I don't know if you've heard this one, but one of the other biggest Star Wars changes was the infamous scene with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and he's letting him know, you know, all along that he was his father. Well, the most iconic saying that everybody, of course, knows that Darth Vader says to Luke is, "Luke, I am your father."
Right?
You probably remember it that way.
I seem to remember it that way.
Well, now when you change it back and you play it back again, he no longer says that. He is Darth Vader is saying, "No, I am your father. Just no." So that's blowing a lot of these Star Wars nerds' mind, because they've memorized these scripts, and there's a lot of, you know, hardcore Star Wars fans. So it's shaking up the whole community. These are very iconic things that tend to change, and that's why it's raising a few eyebrows, you know, around the community. It's a pretty big one.
And one of my favorites is from The Field of Dreams, the great classic movie now with Kevin Costner, and about that particular Field of Dreams. And there was a quote in there that everybody was quoting for years and still quotes. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like maybe they're misquoting it, according to the Mandela.
Yeah. I know, because what is it? If you build it, they will come. And now it's, if you build it, he will come.
Yeah, and I swear
it's comical.
I mean, blows me away, because even though I have a lifelong interest in the paranormal and the supernatural, I still consider myself a pretty feet on the ground guy. But I remember what I remember. And I think that's a reaction of a lot of people. So we see this in not only in movies and so forth. What other kind of areas of life do we see this in? You said maybe celebrities who people thought had passed and they're still alive, those kind of things, and remembering, you know, a press conference that maybe a certain actor or actress died or something, and then it turns out they're still alive. What other areas do we see this in?
Well, you know, that's a big part of it. Definitely pop culture, definitely movies, actors, TV, television. But, you know, one of the ones that's honestly shaken me up the most there have been changes to the Holy Bible. And I think that is the one that has really shooken me to the core. I've been a theology student off and on since the year 2011. And I'm actually like a biblical studies major, where I'm, you know, learning as much as I can about the Bible to write books about it. And so one of the first things that came across my path was that a very famous saying about just the Lord's Prayer, which most people know, that the Lord's Prayer had changed. And this is something that both myself and my children had said, you know, hundreds of thousands of times. And when I realized that the Lord's Prayer changed, that one floored me completely, because it used to say, "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." And now if you open up the King James Bible, which tends to be the industry standard for most Christians nowadays, what it actually says is, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." And I find that very strange, considering I didn't think debts and debtors had anything to do with the Lord's Prayer. So there's a lot more Bible changes I've actually put into the book, almost so many that I don't even know where to begin. But it just makes you wonder, you know, if it's happening in pop culture, if it's happening with actors and people's names and very famous movie quotes and characters that we know. When it starts changing something that we know, like the Holy Bible, that's when I started saying, okay, this is something serious. What is really going on here? So that one really shook me to the core. And at this point now, I think there's hundreds of Bible scripture changes that other researchers have actually found. But that one really floored me.
So,
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, if you'd asked me before this, you're bringing these new ones, or at least new for me, to my attention. It's like, yeah, I don't remember anything about debts and debtors, but, wow. Now I'm going to have to go look that up. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, I have a whole section of it in the Mandela Effect book. Towards the back, I kind of get into some different theories and some Bible changes. And I found one document alone, which was showing that over 500 words in the King James Bible had also changed and had changed their meanings completely.
Wow.
So, I wasn't born a Christian or anything, but I've kind of later in life really resonated towards that direction of study.
Right.
And the more I've learned about this, it's just kind of, it's really just blowing my mind. So I'm continuing on a master's right now in biblical studies because I really want to find out what's going on here. Pretty hardcore.
So we're going to have a break in a minute. And after that break, I want to talk to you about, okay, if this is happening, what's causing it. But before we do that, give us one more that really blows your mind, that is going to drop some jaws when they hear it and when I hear it.
Okay. Oh, it's so hard at this point. There's just so many. One of the other biggest Mandela effects that absolutely blew my mind. Okay, here we go. This has definitely blown a lot of people's minds. The position of our heart within our body, within our human anatomy, okay? We've had many anatomy changes as well, which is pretty scary. But most people remember that when you were a kid in school, you would put your right hand over your heart to say the Pledge of Allegiance every day. And we kind of always assumed that our heart was over on the right. Well, now, if you check all medical books and medical standard books, our heart has actually shifted to the center of our chest. And what's even funnier is that if you go and kind of feel where your heartbeat used to be, you can go to the center of your chest and you will notice that your heartbeat now is in the middle of your chest. Now, if that won't blow your mind, I don't know what will.
Huh. Wow. Yeah. I always thought it was on the left side is where I thought it was, but I mean,
Oh, sorry, left side. Yeah, right hand over your heart. I meant the left side. Sorry about that. But
so
yes,
you're
it's
saying
not left nor right. It's right in the center now.
So okay, if you'd asked me 10 minutes before this, I would have said it's on the left side. And now it's in the center?
Right, yes.
Oh, wow.
It's in the center. I said it backwards because I was thinking right hand over your heart. But yes, it's on the left side is where we would normally have our heart. And now it has moved to the center. Every medical book you can find anywhere on the internet will reflect this.
Huh.
So that one definitely blew my mind.
Yeah, that is a mind blower for sure. Well, we're having a great time talking about something that's actually, in a way, quite terrifying. It's called The Mandela Effect, and we have an author of a new book on it, Stasha Eriksen. The book is The Mandela Effect. Everything is changing. And we're going to talk about maybe why it's changing right after this on the Paranormal Podcast. The Paranormal Podcast is brought to you by Gaia, the streaming TV service dedicated to exploring the cutting edge of metaphysics, ancient wisdom, and the unexplained. And keep listening because I'm going to tell you how you can get your first month of Gaia for only 99 cents. Now, streaming is a great thing. It can bring you great movies, great entertainment. It's just fantastic. And now, thanks to Gaia, there's a place not only for comedians and for, general entertainment movies and those kind of things, but there's a place on streaming for the topics we love. And that place is Gaia. And they are constantly upping their game. You can watch Gaia on all your devices, your Roku, your Apple TV, your iPhone, iPad, Chromecast, Android, Fire TV, your computer. If you're listening to me, you can watch Gaia. There's no question about it. Now, the thing about the internet and video, well, you know this. Just because there's a lot doesn't mean that it's good. And, you go into the internet looking for video on the paranormal and, the quality is uneven to say the least. But that's not the case with Gaia. because Gaia, well, they do two things. One, they create fantastic original content with the greatest thinkers in these areas. And then also, they add into the mix, they curate, and they go out and they look for some of the best content done by video producers, and they bring it into Gaia, and what a beautiful mosaic it makes. And every week, they tell me about everything new coming. For example, we told you about Erik von Däniken, the guy behind the idea of aliens coming here in ancient times. His show, Beyond the Legend, episode 4, is now available only on Gaia. This week, Erik von Däniken looks at angelic ETs of the ancient world. He invites us to take a new look at ancient scriptures to gain a new understanding of divine intervention upon historic events. And I think that you're going to enjoy that program. I have thus far. What I've seen of it, just really, really interesting, coming from the legend himself, Erik von Däniken. False Flags with Richard Dolan continues. Interesting one here, False Flags and Regime Change. With the end of the Second World War, the U.S. and Soviet Union began a Cold War for global dominance. Both sides engaged in tactics to convince people that they needed to submit to ever-increasing levels of authority for their own protection. So you'll find out about that with Richard. And also a new one. It's a little outside of the paranormal, but certainly towards the unusual, the unknown, and something that's very mysterious. Called Bilderberg, the movie. It's a documentary film about the origins, development, and expansion of one of the most elitist and secret organizations in the world today, the Bilderberg Group. So you can check that out as well. Gaia, they have it all. You're absolutely going to love it. I know you do. If you're listening to this show, you're going to love it. So you can try it out now for only 99 cents. But first, do this. Go over to Gaia.com/Jim. That's GAIA.com/Jim. There, I've handpicked some videos, and you get a chance to kind of get a flavor of what Gaia is all about. And I am absolutely convinced when you watch those free videos, you're going to say, Jim is right. This is very cool, and I want this. It's a video buffet for the topics we love. So go to Gaia.com/Jim, watch those videos, and after you're done, find that little red button that says sign up and try your first month for only 99 cents. You're absolutely going to enjoy it. I want you to check it out. Visit Gaia.com/Jim. That's GAIA.com/Jim to see what's happening on the largest consciousness media streaming platform in the world. Thanks, Gaia. We're back on the Paranormal Podcast. Wow, is this a fascinating conversation? Nothing to do with me. It has all to do with our guest, Stasha Eriksen. And the book is The Mandela Effect. Everything is changing. And I don't know if you could tell by my tone, I am really fascinated by this. Now, is it real? You know, I'm still up in the air on it, but boy, a lot of these things, I remember them in column A, and it turns out they're in column B. And Stasha has already supplied a couple that I didn't know about that, like, what? So we're going to talk to her about why. So Stasha, getting back to the Mandela Effect, we've talked about what happens. So what are some of the theories of why this strange thing is happening to us?
Okay, well, there is a lot of them. In fact, there's so many theories. When I wrote the book, I had to just kind of pick the top 10 that were the most popular, because at this point we have about 100 different theories floating around out there. But the main, I'll kind of touch on the main ones that most people believe are causing this. Now, I'm sure probably on your paranormal research path, you've probably heard about a company known as CERN.
Oh,
Have you heard of CERN before?
We've heard of CERN. Yes,
scientific
absolutely.
research. Okay, so CERN, for those who don't know, is a scientific research facility in Geneva, Switzerland. And essentially, they are the company or the scientists that went looking for the God particle back in 2011. Now, a lot of people believe that CERN are doing a heck of a lot more than just looking for the God particle out there. They believe that they have access to time machines, which are essentially set up through a network known as the D-Wave computer. And these D-Wave computers are essentially supercomputers that kind of have a consciousness, like an AI. Now, it's really high-tech scientific stuff, but long story short, if CERN were actually using their facilities for time travel, it makes us think back to like the movie Back to the Future with Marty McFly. And one of the main rules was is if you went back into the past, you couldn't touch anything or you couldn't change anything or you couldn't do anything at all besides observe the past, because if you changed even one small little thing, it would change the future. So what some people believe in the Mandela Effect community, they believe that CERN has been using their facility as a time travel machine and going back in time and changing certain events in history just to see what would happen, or maybe just because they can. So if one of these guys, let's say a certain scientist said, let's go back and change it to where Nelson Mandela never died in the 80s. We're going to make Nelson Mandela die in the year 2013, and let's see if the world's a better place for him to be, in our lives a lot longer. That could be one example of what's happening. So this could essentially be a symptom of time travel. Now, I know that seems pretty far-fetched, but in a way it kind of makes sense. And you notice how Hollywood set us up with these ideas by making movies like Back to the Future and kind of getting that understanding into our mind of, well, if you go back in time, don't change anything or you'll change the future. So that tends to be the number one theory that people are bumping around right now, that time travel is actually causing these symptoms. Now, there is another aspect of that as well, which is pretty hardcore, and that's that people basically believe that the changes that we're seeing is due to Satan himself coming down and changing everything to his kind of way. So there's a lot of people that have actually signed up and believing that this is a very spiritual attack kind of on humanity and on our planet, that this is all coming from witchcraft or Satanism or different rituals that satanic people do. So these are kind of two totally different worlds. You got the people who believe it's time travel, but then you also have people believe that this is some type of black magic. That's another side of it. So you can see where where when people are on the page of theories, we're coming from all different directions here. And I'd say the third and most popular, definitely most popular theory that most people believe is that we could possibly have just merged with what is known as a parallel reality. And I'm sure you've probably talked about that on some of your shows
the
before,
multiverse and so forth, yeah.
Exactly. So that tends to be the most popular one I see people leaning towards, is that our universe very well may have merged with another very similar universe, one that looks just like ours, the people are just like us, but maybe things are just slightly a little bit different, almost like an old Doctor Who episode or something like that. And if we were merging with another reality or another dimension, then some of that dimension and reality would bleed into ours. So we could very well be watching the version of Star Wars that's from, let's say, Parallel Earth A, and really all of us have been from Parallel Earth B all along. And so we're starting to see this kind of merging or collapsing of multiverses and different dimensions, and that could very well be a symptom of what's going on as well. So those are kind of like the top three. I'm still on the fence about all of it. As a researcher, I try to stay very, unbiased throughout the whole presentation when I'm writing the books, and really still weighing it out there. But there's definitely something going on, definitely something. So those are the top three, the top three theories at this point. But there's a lot more. It gets pretty deep when it comes to theories.
So to me, kind of the dividing point of those two, or one of the dividing points, might be the idea that this is something that's happening accidentally, or this is something happening malevolently or maliciously. Can you talk about the juxtaposition there? I mean, is this an accident? Is this a cosmic accident? Is it an accident because these people have been looking for the God particle and maybe causing some unintended consequences? Because we know that happens. You start out with a very good aim and it causes other problems that you didn't think about. Or is it people, whether, in the way out there case, Satan, or I feel like the church lady when I say it, Satan, Is it?
I almost felt like her too when I said it.
Could it be Satan? No, I don't know. But is it Satan, or is it scientists saying, well, we don't like this thing about history, so we're going to change it? And somebody said, well, actually, I'd like C-3PO better if he had a silver leg. I mean, talk about the difference between an accident versus intentional.
It's a really good point that you put up. That's the thing. I think 50% of it could be the whole accident vibe. If they're like going and changing things on purpose, they might think, oh, okay, we're just going to change this one little thing, but nothing else will get affected. Well, I think the accident could have been that they changed one thing, but then it caused a ripple effect of other things changing. So that, I believe, could be an accidental element to what ended up unfolding with this. However, I did like what you said about the God particle thing, because I believe that when they searched for that God particle and they said they found it, I believe there's a very good chance that they could have opened up, let's say, like a tear in the atmosphere, or a tear in, almost like opening up a portal in the universe. And if you kind of recreate the Big Bang and you recreate God, so to speak, whether it's artificial or whatever, you're probably going to start allowing some other really intense energies to make their way onto the planet. And so it may not have been intended for, let's say, quote unquote, Satan to have caused this. But if those scientists were messing around with God particles and they opened up a portal or ripped a hole in time and space, then there's a very good chance that some nefarious beings from other dimensions could have made their way into us, and that may not have been a plan at all. And this could be, again, the parallel world theory, where we're merging in with some outside influence or some outside beings or an outside race. So it really could kind of be a combination of all of these things. You know, if they opened up the scientific door, they ripped a hole in the universe. And if you do believe in God, you kind of have to believe in the opposite effect too. So maybe something more negative was brought into this planet that was never meant to be. And now we're kind of seeing a merging of our world with theirs. So it's really hard to see, because I don't think anybody would do this on purpose, because too many people are noticing all of the clues now. That's the other thing. And it's giving us a full-time job connecting the dots. Part of the universe, I feel like, is supporting me in opening up these doors and answering these questions and asking these questions, where another part of the universe, I feel like, is blocking me, as if like they don't want me to let the world know that they've made a mistake or something to that nature also. So it's really still hard to say. And as I even finished volume 1, I really decided I still had to keep going with writing about this. So right now I'm writing volume 2 and volume 3, because there's just so much more to the whole shebang. I can't figure out really how it started or how it ended or who's causing it until I continue to collect stories. I have a lot of people sending me stories from all over the world, personal stories, and I'm trying to just give this whole thing a voice and really get to the bottom of it. I wish that I could just sit here and say, I know what's causing it, and this is why it's happening, and this is who did it. But I'm hoping that with these books, we will get those answers eventually. And that's truly what I hope for, because it's definitely a hard thing to explain.
Well, it's frightening, because if you think about it, and I don't know that this has been reported, but if movie quotes are changing, or people are, let's say, alive who used to be past, it could go in that example, it could go maybe in the opposite direction. Maybe somebody dies who was alive, or maybe somebody doesn't even come into existence, they could be erased from existence if this is really going on. Yeah. Are there any reports of anything like that?
There's been quite a few reports, and this is going to go into my second book. I'm getting a lot deeper into the death mystery, because I've actually heard a lot of accounts from everyday people. I haven't heard so many about like celebrities and stuff yet, but I've had personal clients email me and say things like, okay, this may seem very strange, but I've known my neighbor down the street for 50 years, and this man has been dead for at least 10 years. He was an old man. And the other day, I'm walking to go get the mail, and he walks right past me, says hello to me, and checks his mail and goes right back into the house as if the man had never died. Now, this woman swore to me that this man had been dead for more than 10 years, that it was impossible for him to still be living, yet one day there he was, and he's been back ever since. So maybe some of these things have gone and, like, brought people back from the dead as well. Some people maybe fail to never exist, and then maybe some people are just rising again. So that's very strange also. I've heard more accounts from people telling me stuff like that, like, oh, I know my neighbor was dead and I saw her yesterday. I've actually had a few of those emails come my way, so I'm trying to get permission from the people who sent them to me to share their stories in the next book, because that type of stuff blows my mind. I haven't witnessed anything like someone I thought was dead being alive again, but a lot of people have. So that's, to me, pretty significant.
Absolutely. So we as regular people, everyday people, we're not scientists at a large organization. We're not heads of state, those kind of people. What can we do? What should we do about this? Because, it's kind of a cool thing to talk about, but if it's real, it's terrifying. And generally, I would say it is a bad thing. Of course, it's great that Nelson Mandela lived longer and was able to become president of South Africa and fight for justice and all that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. And there might be some good things come out of this, but it would seem to me that in general, if something is the way it is, it's probably not good to change it. All you have to do is watch any time travel movie. You should never change anything because you screw up the rest of history. So is there anything we can do, or should we just remain vigilant and talk about this?
Well, what I suggest for people to do is I really suggest for people to, especially if they've never heard about the Mandela Effect before, they can just go on my website. I have a video blog full of hundreds of videos that I've done on the effect. I have a YouTube channel with hundreds of videos on the effect. The best thing to do for anybody who's hearing about this for the first time is just to start researching the anomaly. Try to avoid researching it on pages like Wikipedia, because on Wikipedia they're really trying to kind of discredit the Mandela effect and basically call it confabulation theory, which means that it's just a bunch of people misremembering things wrong. But this has gone beyond people remembering things wrong. So first, I would say for people to educate themselves, definitely check out my book, because it's the first paperback of its kind that is research-based and putting the Mandela effect in a positive light, where some of the other books you might find out there are trying to debunk it or make some of us look, uncredible. So once you've kind of done some research, I think the best thing you can do is just start asking your friends and family. Like, make a little list of like the top 10 Mandela changes that affect you. And just start asking people in your life, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, people on the street. Start taking notice of this. And if we do it kind of gently and we reawaken our memories and we can keep records of this, then the most important thing we can really do is hold on to our memories. And if we can just remember how things were, then that means we're staying true to who we are as people. And even if they keep changing everything around us, we'll still have our memories. The other thing I would really suggest for people to do is just, if they can make their own YouTube videos about this type of topic, if they're interested, the more information we get out there in a positive light, and the more people that are willing to share their true story and their true Mandela Effect stories, this will be taken seriously. And eventually somebody's going to have to raise their hand and say, okay, you know what? It was us. Eventually we will get to the bottom of this, I think. So I think awareness is the best thing, and sharing these effects with friends and family, and really just, getting as involved as you can. But the main thing I try to tell people overall in my videos and in my books is I keep the theme of don't be afraid. Because the main thing is if we get really freaked out, oh my God, my heart's changed, the Bible changed, some of this stuff is heavy. If we get lost in the fear of it, that could be part of what the nefarious agenda is. And we don't want to give into that. The best thing we can do is give ourselves knowledge and wisdom. And the more we know and the more we understand, that is how we can make a change and get to the bottom of this. So education and just sharing it with everybody you know.
Well,
we got to get to the bottom of it.
Well, I agree. And on these shows, we love stories and examples. So before we go, can we have one more mind-blowing example of the Mandela Effect?
Okay. This one really blew my mind. Now, I'm a big science buff. I'm not a scientist, but I do like to keep an eye on scientists and what's going on in that world. And NASA makes me raise a lot of eyebrows. So I've talked a lot about them in my book also. But one of the main Mandela effects that totally blew my mind was that the position of ourselves and our planet Earth within the Milky Way galaxy has changed. Now, the main reason I'm going to bring this one up is because I have proof, and I also have proof of it in the book. Now, you know Neil deGrasse Tyson, I'm sure.
Of course.
Okay. So he has a weekly show or podcast called Star Talk that he does.
Yep.
And he was the only one I was able to find evidence of him telling us where we used to be located in the universe. Now, how I remembered it is that we were located in what is known as the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way galaxy. So I was watching a Star Trek episode, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, at the beginning of the show, he did say, yes, we are located in the Milky Way galaxy on the Sagittarius arm. Well, about a year later, after I saw that program, I went on to Google, and I just simply typed in, where are we located in the universe? And Google has informed myself and hundreds of other people, if you just go on and ask them now, and they will tell you that we are now located in what is known as the Orion Spur of the Milky Way galaxy. Now, the Orion Spur is the exact opposite of where the Sagittarius arm is located in the Milky Way galaxy. So if we have somehow, if the parallel world thing could be true, we've essentially completely moved positions from one side of the universe to the other. And I even have Neil deGrasse Tyson on video proving it. That's my biggest residual evidence I could find. So if you ask a scientist where we're located and they say Sagittarius arm, you can blow their mind and say, why don't you go double check, because we are now in the Orion Spur.
Now, I'll ask you just one last question, then we want to tell people where they can go and maybe share their experiences, find out more about everything you do. There are a few people out there, maybe there are many people out there, say, Stasha, this is just people misremembering things. People, you know, they've got a million things going on. They forget a line in a movie. They forget that C-3PO was part silver. You know, it's just faulty memory. It's just human nature. And this is just because the internet and somebody brought it up on a Reddit forum or somewhere, and it's just kind of gone viral. What would you say to that person?
Well, I get it every day. I get an email like that every single day. And what I say is, it's too undeniable at this point. There are too many clues. If it was just one movie line, if it was just one person's name changing, if it was just one person's death, I could accept that. I could accept even for myself that I could misremember something in life. I don't have the best memory in the world. But when undeniable aspects like the location of your heart, and when you open up your Bible and your favorite passage in scripture of the Lord's Prayer is changed, that's when I say it can no longer just be a misremembering anymore. And when thousands and thousands of people contact me from all over the world on a daily basis with different stories and the same memories, then I say it's way beyond just a faulty memory. There's something much deeper going on here. It's too numerous now to deny.
Stasha, where can everybody go and find out more information about everything you do, more about the Mandela Effect, and how to submit their own stories?
Well, the best way to do it is just to go to my website, which is StashaEriksen.com. There is a tab on my website called Books, and on there you can see I've actually self-published 3 books at this point. I have a couple on conspiracy theories and animal communication and some other things like that. But you can find the link to the Mandela Effect book there. I also have an ongoing GoFundMe page. Since all the books are self-published, usually my readers and my subscribers, they help donate so that I can put these books together, because without a publishing deal, it's pretty expensive to make books. So people can also find the tab for the GoFundMe page for the next 2 volumes of the Mandela Effect that I'll be releasing very shortly, and that's volumes 2 and 3. I also have a contact page and a video blog on that site as well, where you can just send me your story. You can contact me directly. You can watch my videos there and on YouTube. And I get a little busy at times. I do get a lot of submissions, but I'm really interested in getting as many real people involved into these book series as possible. The entire first book is all people from YouTube, Reddit, and personal emails. So anybody that contacts me, and if your story is legitimate, and especially if you have some proof along with it, like pictures or evidence of all, I would love to have anybody out there included in these next couple of books, because I really want this to be all about us. And we will get to the bottom of it. The more that get involved, we will get answers. I'm confident, 100%.
Well, very interesting stuff, Stasha, and I can tell you this, you've made me think, and I'm sure you've made many people out there think as well. And we appreciate you appearing on the Paranormal Podcast today.
Thank you so much, Jim. It was my pleasure, and I'd love to come back anytime.
What a fascinating topic. That's one I think you're going to be hearing a lot from in this quarter, because I'm absolutely fascinated by it. I think that the Mandela Effect is one of the most interesting things going on out there today, and we hope to talk about it much, much more. And something I want to talk about a little bit here, not too much, but I think it's perfectly appropriate for the 500th episode of the Paranormal Podcast. If you're listening to the free shows, you may wonder, I know, Jim, you've done 500 episodes of the Paranormal Podcast, but if I look at the free feed, there's only about 13 shows there. What's the deal? How do I listen to all of the other ones? Well, we really haven't publicized it much lately because we were in a transitional period, but now my new Paranormal Plus Club is available for everyone, and you can sign up at jimharoldplus.com. That's jimharoldplus.com. Just go there and click on the banner, and you'll be on your way. And really the game changer with that is our new Spooky Studio app, the app specifically, if you're looking to download it on Apple, Android, or Amazon. It's called Jim Harold Spooky Studio. You download that, and then you have access to the free shows, just like you do now. But if you become a Plus Club member, you can log in and get all 1,400 shows at the a flick of your finger. And it's been a great thing. We've had many Plus Club members transition over to the new system, and I would say it's running about 95% positive. You know, there's a few people who are kind of tied to the old way of doing things. That's understandable. Sometimes people are resistant to change. But overall, it's been, Jim, this is so much easier, so much better. So if you maybe were a Plus Club member and you let it lapse because you thought it was a little difficult to access the content before, well, we've addressed that. If you've never tried the Plus Club before, certainly please give it a try. There's monthly and yearly options. I want to be real clear. Nothing has changed on the free side. You can listen on the free side like you have always: iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify. However you are listening now on the free side, the free shows will always be free, the most recent 13 weeks, and they'll also always be available in all those main places. It would be crazy for us to pull them away from those places. So don't worry about that. But if you sign up and you want to consume the Plus Club content, specifically for the Plus content, there are two ways to consume it. It's going to be at jimharoldplus.com and all the associate websites we link to there. And then on the Jim Harold Spooky Studio app, and that's for the Plus content only. You'll also be able to listen to the free content there too if you choose, but you don't have to. You can listen in whatever way you listen today if you want to keep on whatever platform it is. But for Plus, it will be the app and the jimharoldplus.com platform. I mean, I'm very excited about it. I think we're going to double or triple the number of Plus Club members just because it's easy and it's in an app. And this app is the game changer. This is the one where you can download it and you've got everything right there. What's nice, you can download stuff when you're at home and Wi-Fi and then take it with you so you're not using your data. And we're just really, really excited about it. I hope you'll check it out at jimharoldplus.com. You can go back and listen to episode 1 and laugh at me. Actually, it was great information on the first episode. I believe that was either Stanton Friedman or Lloyd Auerbach. I probably should have looked that up, but both great guests. So just ignore me on those episodes and listen to them. They were both great. But you can go all the way back. Same for the Campfire and all those shows you've never really listened to. People go, I didn't know you did a show just on cryptids or a show just on ghosts or a show just on UFOs. And I said, should have tried the Plus Club sooner. JimHaroldPlus.com. Go there, click on the banner, join up, give it a try. There's yearly and monthly options. Choose the one that's best. If you think you're in it for the long haul, go with yearly. It's a much better deal. And we certainly appreciate it. Check it out, JimHaroldPlus.com. And now back to the show. Our next guest, fascinating topic. I know very little about this, so I'm really excited to learn, and I hope you will be too. There's a new book out called Old Style Conjure, Hoodoo, Root Work, and Folk Magic, and we have the author on the line, Star Casas, and she has written this book to teach us all about conjure. She is a veteran root worker and traditional conjure woman. She's been helping people for over 35 years through her ancestral art of old-style conjure. She's one of the most preeminent modern masters of this Southern American style of folk magic, and she maintains an active teaching schedule. She's also among the organizers of the annual New Orleans Folk Magic Festival, and we're so glad to have us with us. Star, welcome to the program today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So, what was your goal with this book? What did you want to do with it and accomplish with it?
With this book, I thought that it was important for folks to know where the work came from, where it all started at, and to start from the beginning of it, right? Like there in the last 14 years, this work has really gotten out into the world when it used to be private. It used to be things that was done within family. And so like everything else, when folks don't know exactly what it is or how to do it, they tend to mix and match things to make it work for them. And then when you do that, it becomes something different. And so it was important for me and for my ancestors to kind of put the information out there of where the work comes from, how it began, what it was in the beginning, and it's basically what folks call old wives' tales. You know, the tales about the grandmas treating and
sure.
and doing all the healings and stuff like that. That is really truly what this is. And it has evolved over time. You know, like now we have prosperity works that can be done. We have other things, but in the old days when the work first started, it was mostly for like lost stay away, protection of the family, healing and cleansing, because this work comes from slavery. So they weren't allowed to have money and stuff. So money drawn and prosperity works and all that is new. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew where it came from.
So when we talk about conjure, I mean, people that conjures up different thinkings and thoughts.
Right.
Specifically, right. What is conjure?
Conjure is basically a set of old-timey works. Some folks call it hoodoo, but where I come from, it was not called that. It was either called conjure or just the work. just the work. And for me, when I hear hoodoo is like a question. Who do you? Who put the roots on you? You see? Mm-hmm. And so when we say conjure, root work, it deals with all the plants, the healing plants, because the plants and stuff that grow have power. And in the old days, that's what the elders worked with. So when folks hear conjure work, sometimes they may think like you're conjuring up a spirit or something like that, but it's not.
So,
you're not.
Right, I understand what you're saying. So I mean, and that was going to get to my next question, is sometimes I think when people hear something like this, they assume it's evil or it's something to be afraid of. But
yes,
that's not the case, is it?
No, sir. Now, in the old days, and I want to say this first before we get a bunch of people riled up. In the old days, when the slaves were brought from Africa, they probably were not Christian. I know Christianity was in Africa at that time, but I truly don't believe that whenever the ancestors were brought over here that they were Christians. I think maybe by the second generation they had to become Christians because they could not practice their religion as they would in their homeland. And so within that, they turned Christianity into something that they could work with and could honor. And so therefore, a lot of the work is hidden within the Old Testament. So most conjure workers, and especially in the old days, not now so much, but in the old days, most conjure workers were Christian. And if you look, as you read the book, I tried to put verses from the Bible and the works that go with those verses because the Old Testament is very powerful, Right. And that to be able to say that it's evil, how can you say that, Even though I know a lot of folks are nervous about it, and especially in the old days, that's why it was so hush-hush, But every community had an elder that when something went wrong, they could go to them and get it fixed. Whether it was an illness, a husband that wouldn't stay at home, whatever it was unruly children, whatever it was going on within that household, there has always been an elder in the community that could help with those issues.
Is this something, we tend to think about this as you said, old time. This is something that people can use today, right?
Yes, sir, it is. It is, because like everything else, everything has to evolve. Nothing can ever really stay the same because we as human beings, we grow. And as the elders pass and it's passed on to another generation, I think that every generation adds their own twist to the work, but yet it's kept with the foundation firm. Like my mother did not burn candles at all. I never saw my mother burn a candle. Seen her praying. I seen her burning lamps, oil lamps. I seen her looking in a cup. She never laid out cards either. So, but then whenever I came up, and I've had different teachers to teach me, and all teachers are different. And so I learned how to read the playing cards. I learned how to throw the bones and to read them. I cannot read the symbols in a coffee cup or in a teacup like my mother could. I can't do that. I'm not gifted that way. But so from what my mother did, I have evolved from that. But the foundation is still the same. Where the work comes from, the elders that brought this work here, the ancestors of this work is most important. And, a lot of folks don't want to talk about slavery because it was ugly. But if you do this work, you have to understand the blood, sweat, tears, and the pain that this work evolved out of. Because not to do that is very disrespectful, and it's dishonoring the work and the folks who brought it here.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, these people had to deal with such a horrible, horrible situation. So they had to have their own resources and their own things that they could call upon. And I'm assuming this was a very important one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And this is things from Africa, like the old tales, the Burr Rabbits and Tar Baby and all those tales. Some folks think that those tales are racist, but if they grew up with those tales, they would understand that there are stories within those tales and there are life's lessons within those tales. I grew up on those stories. That's how my mama taught us right from wrong. As children, if you don't make it interesting, we do not get it. And so the tales are really important. And Burr Rabbit was a hot mess. He was always getting into something. But then there was always a moral to the dilemmas that he got into to show what not to do. And so as children, we soaked it up, and it's just stuck with me, my whole life. And I honor this work, and I honor my ancestors, every last one of them. And I'm grateful that my mama, because some of my aunties left home, and, and they've said, because they didn't want to be backwards no more, So in some families, this work represents being backwards, not being up to date. I feel like I'm fully up to date. I've just kind of like drug my ancestors in the past along with me as I've grown.
Well, it's very, very interesting. It definitely is. The topic is old style conjure, hoodoo, root work, and folk magic. Our guest is Star Cassis, and we're talking all about it. We'll be back right after this.
Jim has a new app, and it's awesome. It's called Jim Harold's Spooky Studio. It's a spooktacular one-stop shop for all Jim's podcasts, both free and plus. Find it on your device's app store or go to jimharold.com/new app.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Podcast. Our guest is Star Cassis, and we're talking about old style conjure. That's the name of her new book, and she's a master conjurer, and we're glad to have her with us. Now, can we talk about some of the tools used in conjure? In the media, you'll see somebody over a cauldron and they're mixing different things. And I think that's the kind of thing that people associate with conjure, rightly or wrongly. But what is it really like? I mean, what kind of tools, physical tools, do you use to do conjure?
Brooms are very powerful, and I was raised to respect the broom. When we were kids, all kids like to ride the broom like a horsey or whatever. We were never allowed to do that. And growing up in South Carolina, my grandmother had a dirt yard because there was just no grass growing there. And so my grandmother made her brooms to sweep the yard with. And so that was one of the strong things that I remember and will never forget in my life is the right way to sweep. And so we would have to start at the back of the house to the edge of the woods and sweep in long strokes going forward, not back and forth, because all you're doing is just stirring up stuff, and you sweep in long strokes and sweep all the way out to the road. Now, for folks who might not understand why, the thing is that there are tricks that can be laid. And back in the old days, folks could make powders and stuff that just looked like the dirt in the yard. And you sprinkle it, and when the target, and when the target walks in the powder, then the trick has been laid, and they've gotten into it. So we had to sweep my grandmother's yard every day. We swept it. And on each side of her door stoop, she had some flowers called Touch Me Not. So the symbolism of that is that within the name holds power. So Touch Me Not, for me as a child, I loved messing with those flowers, and I got in trouble so many times because if you just touched the little pot, it would open up. And, of course, the seeds would fall out, and so there it would be. But the symbolism of those are saying, you can't touch me. And she always had it on each side of the door stoop. So the broom is very, very important. When we were children, if we had nightmares, my mama would pray over us, and she would put the broom across the doorway while we slept, because the old folks say that spirits can't cross over a broom. And so that is one of the remedies that I still work with today when I have issues, folks, clients coming to me, not being able to sleep. The broom really does stop that. Open Bible under the bed also helps stop nightmares. If you looked under my bed right now, you would find an open Bible with an old sifter sitting on top of it. And this is believed to be able to keep the night hags away from you.
Oh my!
Because in order
Those
to
are
get
scary.
to you, they have to get through the sifter. You see?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So everything that we do in this work, it's old. It's been done over and over by generations and generations. And so some of the things are really important. And over time, they've still held their power, and they're still passed on with the knowledge and the information. Chicken feet and roosters and rooster feathers are really important also. And this is because if you've ever seen a rooster on a farm, they are constantly scratching, digging, pecking. And it's believed, and this is, I think, where some folks think that it's old wives' tales. It's believed that the rooster can find work. If someone's laid a trick in your yard, the rooster can go find it, and he will dig it and scratch it up. I happen to have a rooster. His name is Houdini. And
great name.
I got Houdini. Yes, well, I named him that because he kept getting out. When I first got him, I got him for a job. A fella needed something done. He didn't have any money to pay for it, but he wanted to give me something. And so he gave me the rooster for the work. And so Houdini is about 4 or 5 years old. But I named him that because the first couple of days I had him, I went outside at night to check on him, and he was not in the coop. And I came in here and woke my husband up, and I was like, oh, Lord, my bird is gone. So we went outside, and it's in the middle of the night looking around, and I look up in the tree, and there he is up in the tree on the roof, just watching me look for him. And so I started calling him Houdini. So he's fabulous. And he does dig and scratch, and sometimes he will even get on top of the house and just scratch on top of the house. So does that mean bad weather's coming? Does that mean that someone is trying to put something over here, has someone drop something. I don't know. I just know that that's what he does. And I was raised to believe that when they do that, that they're clearing up messes.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And yes. And so chicken feet is another tool, because these are tools, is another tool that is worked with for cleansing, for protection. It can use to scratch off illnesses, cross conditions. Hung by the door, it will brush off conditions that folks might bring into your house. So these are all tools. They're tools that I use every day, and they're household tools. It may seem odd to some folks, but to me, it's a natural thing to have them and to work with them.
It's very, very interesting. What about things like roots and herbs, that type of thing?
Yes, sir. Those are, in the old days, even in my mother's time, my mama always had a garden where she grew stuff, but my mama would also go out in the yard or go in the woods and just pick stuff up to make teas and washes and stuff out of. So it's not in baths that you literally put in your bath water. And so there are some roots and herbs that have lasted for many, many, many years. Solomon seal root is an important root because it brings forth wisdom within the person that carries it. It brings forth wisdom so you will know what to do and what not to do. John the Conqueror root is a very, very old root, and that's a root to remove blocks, to conquer enemies, to bust things open with. Lavender is another one. Lavender is really good for peaceful home work, for settling down arguments and stuff in the house. It's also good for headaches. Jezebel root is another strong root, and that root is to promote women's power, women's self-esteem. It's real good for women who have been abused. Rue is another one. Rue is very powerful. Let me think of some more that I really, really like that I work with always. Licorice root is another one, and licorice root is more, it can settle the stomach, but licorice root is more worked with for getting in control of things, taking control of situations. Lemon, dried lemon peel, cuts and clears, removes. Dried orange peel, draws. And it's one of the ingredients in attraction work to draw to you. We use shredded money to draw because light begets light. Let's see what else. If there's any situation that you can think of that you would possibly need help with, there is most definitely a root or a herb that can help with that situation.
That's really interesting. And what is the mechanism? It calls on the universe. It calls on spirits. I mean, you use it, it works. Why does it work?
Okay. So I believe, and I don't know it all, this is what I was taught, so this is what I believe. I believe that every plant and animal has a spirit to it. So the plant itself already has its own natural power. And so if I'm going to do a job, I will gather the roots and herbs that I need, and I will pray over each root and each herb. Then I combine them, and then I will pray over them again. And I was taught to call on the Trinity, then call on the ancestors, and then say my prayers and my petitions over what I'm working on, and then to blow 3 breaths from my mouth onto whatever it is that I'm putting together, because that offers life to the work, because our breath is life. So I think that it's a combination of the Trinity and most definitely the ancestors, because the ancestors want us to succeed. They're never far from us, and they want us to do better than what they had. And
right.
So the ancestors are really important to this work. And I'm not talking about worshiping them. I'm talking about honoring them, uplifting their spirit with prayers, maybe give them a cool glass of water, a candlelight once a week, to show your appreciation for all the suffering that they went through, so our lives would be easier. So for me,
right.
That's what I follow. Those are the steps I take when I do a job.
So if somebody's listening to this and they say, well, Star's probably definitely been in this her whole life. She's been exposed to it, but I'd be interested. But boy, I've never been exposed to this. Is there a place for newbies, new people to try this out? My new book has a lot of stuff in it that I'm telling you. And it's one of a kind book. I have never wrote a book like I wrote this one. I've written 17. This is the 17th one. But I've not written one like I've written this one. My students tell me that I assume that everybody knows what I know. So with this book, I try to start from the beginning and work through it like in steps that new folks could understand and could help. But there's also works and information in that book that even seasoned workers can find something in there that might be useful. I see. That's interesting. Well, I guess the question at this point, where can we get the book? Where is it available? I know we're recording this a little bit before, but we're going to release this in September when it's out. Where can people get the book, Star?
Amazon is already shipping out books.
Oh, great.
Some folks, yes, sir. Some folks have already gotten them. I got 25 in the mail for an event that I'm doing next week. And so I've held on tight to them because I need them for this event. But other folks are already getting them through the mail from Amazon.
Wow, they're showing it for, as we record this on the 1st of August, they're showing pre-order, but that's great. But definitely by the time people hear this, they will be able to order it, no question.
Oh, so. Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir. They can get it from Wiser website. I will have them on oldstyleconjure.com, and you can get them from Amazon. And I'm sure there's a lot more places, but those three I know for sure you will be able to find this book.
Well, the book is Old Style Conjure, Hoodoo, Root Work, and Folk Magic. Our guest has been Star Cassis. Star, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. You have a blessed day.
And that right there, my friends, is what I love about this show. When do you get to talk to an expert conjurer? When does that happen in the course of your daily life? Well, it does happen in my life, and I want to use that as kind of a segue to say thank you to everyone who has been involved for the last 12 years with the Paranormal Podcast. I mentioned at the beginning of the program, I was going to take this time to say some thank yous and maybe share a little bit of my philosophy on the paranormal. And I'm going to do that now. And first of all, I want to say thank you to all of the listeners, first and foremost, whether you listen to the free shows, you've been a Plus member, you bought a T-shirt, you bought a book, whatever it is. I've been doing this full time since 2012, and I couldn't do any of it without you. And you've made my life much, much better because I get to do something that's really fun and really interesting to me, and a topic that I really have a true passion for and a true interest. And none of that could have been possible without you. So thank you. The other people I'd like to thank, now that we're at a 500th episode on the Paranormal Podcast, are some of the guests. We've had people like Brad Seiger, Nick Redfern, Marie D. Jones, Jeff Belanger, just a ton of great guests. Maria D. Simone. I'm thinking of some of the people who have made a lot of appearances on the show. Rosemary Ellen Guiley. I want to thank them because nobody would be tuning in to hear me, is my belief. And that's something that I think is really important on the show. Is I've never tried to make the Paranormal Podcast, or really any of my podcasts, about me. I've really tried to make them about the guests, and we've been very fortunate to have fantastic guests over the years now. Having done 500 episodes, I only got to mention a few people there. Those are some of my favorites, and I know there's some more favorites that I forgot to mention, so I want to apologize to each and every one of them, but just want to say thank you to everybody who has been on the show, and particularly in the early days, when really the most common question was, what is a podcast anyway? And it's kind of interesting to see all the big companies are jumping in today, and they're just going to try to take over, but we're not going to give up without a fight. But anyway, it's really interesting to see how things have changed in podcasting, and how it's gone from being basically like radio in the very beginning when people were doing it out of their house, to now people put out podcasts and they have staffs of 10 or 20 people to put out one podcast. And we kind of have 1.5 staff, myself and my intrepid associate producer and assistant, Maddie Hilker. And on that note, I want to thank her. She has been fantastic. We've worked together for about 3 years now, and I think the shows have all improved. And I think the guest lineups have improved. The campfire has definitely improved, and it's because of Maddie's hard work. So thank her very much. Also, I want to thank my wife and kids. Very important, because, I've been doing this 12 years, and there have been maybe a lot of evenings, particularly when I was working a full-time job and doing this on the side, when maybe I should have been spending a little more time with them and a little less time recording and editing podcasts. But they knew that it was a passion for me, and they allowed me to pursue it. And can you imagine going home to your wife and saying, "Hey, I want to quit my job with benefits and so forth. I think I want to become a full-time podcaster." That really takes a lot of faith for somebody to say, "Yeah, give that a shot." And so, to my wife and kids, love you guys, and thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity. So that's kind of it for the thank you portion. I know there's people I'm forgetting. I guess I would like to thank all of the sponsors over the years. It's very popular to bash sponsors, but when I think about companies like Audible, who have supported podcasts from very early on, and currently Gaia is doing a lot for us in sponsorship. I mean, folks, these people make the shows possible, and I know I have always done my best to stand up for products that I thought were good products. We don't take any junk. We only take good stuff. And so when we ask you to try our sponsors, please consider it, because they really do make this possible. Really, it's kind of a team effort between my Plus members and the sponsors. Without that, I couldn't put out all these shows. So if you enjoy the shows, thank them by giving them a try. Let's see. There's a lot of people to thank. I want to thank the good folks at Libsyn, our podcast host. I go back all the way to 2005 with them, and now they're working with us on our Plus Club, our new Plus Club, and they have been great. I want to thank my IT guy, Steve, for all of his help over the years. And I know there's people I'm missing. So, if you're out there and, I know who else, the publicists, all the publicists who, helped us book, for the guests, because the guests are great, but they need people to schedule for them and things. So all the publishers who've been so kind sending me books over the years, and all the publicists, I'd like to thank them as well. So I guess that's the thank you portion. I just wanted to get that out there. I promise I only do that once every 500 shows. Okay. Now, on to my beliefs on the paranormal. Now, I want to say something very clear. People sometimes say, well, boy, you were smart to get into this paranormal thing because the popularity of the TV shows and all of that, your timing was impeccable to get into this. To which I say, total coincidence. Basically, when I started back in 2005, I had been a frustrated broadcaster. I had gone to school for broadcasting, but I ended up working on the business side of media. I worked for radio stations for, at that point, 2005, for about 12, 13 years. And I'd worked on the business side, and I wanted to be in front of the mic or in front of the camera, dang it. That's what I went to school for. And that's what my training was in. And I heard about this thing called podcasting. And I said, you know what? Maybe I can't do this for a living, but I can do it for fun. So I started the Paranormal Podcast, and that was a stroke of luck, having a show called the Paranormal Podcast. The advantage of being a early adopter, a first mover, as they say. But anyway, when I decided to do a show, I said, this can't just be doing a show for the sake of doing a show. I have to find something that I'm passionate about, something I'm really interested in, and something that I would pursue even if there's no money in it, because at that time I had absolutely no idea that there would be any possibility of a career in this. I thought it was just for fun. So I thought back to when I go into a bookstore. They still had those at that time. Or a library, or look something up on the rudimentary internet. And regardless of what I'd go in for, I'd always end up in the paranormal section. Had a real interest in all of these things, and I've said this many times, going back to the 70s when I was an elementary school kid and Leonard Nimoy had In Search Of. I love that show. I have the DVD collection right over there on the shelf. Anyway, so I said I'm going to do the paranormal. Well, it'd be great. I'll be able to talk to these deep thinkers, and I'll have the solutions to all of the questions in 6 months. Well, I can tell you 12 years on, 500 episodes of this podcast, not even mentioning the hundreds of other shows I've done on the topic, I don't have a clue. The only thing I will say is I'm more convinced than ever that something's going on. But I'm less convinced than ever about what it is. I think that we as humans have a tendency to give ourselves too much credit. Now, granted, I love technology and I love science. I mean, what we do right here, a podcast wouldn't be possible without all the technological developments that have come up over the years. It's just amazing what's been allowed. Just today, as I record this, Apple just announced their iPhone 10. And, another modern miracle. But I still think sometimes we think, we are the ultimate and we are so smart. And I think really there's just this huge sea of things we don't understand yet. And I think within this huge sea or huge universe of things we don't understand are the answers to many of the questions we talk about on the show. And I think the things do exist. What they are, though, I think we're just kind of like, I guess I would equate it to maybe, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way, but maybe like a blind person or a person with vision impairment who can just see shapes and maybe just see hints of colors. I think that's kind of what we are. We can only see shapes. We can only see hints of colors. We can only get ideas, and we're kind of constructing the world out of what little we can observe. And it's a very incomplete picture. So these things do exist. What they are ultimately, I don't know. I mean, people say, well, what do you believe in and what don't you believe in? So I'll just go over some of the greatest hits here and give you my thoughts. First of all, let's get to the biggie, the afterlife. I think we live on. And I kind of think it would be a sad world to think that if you're lucky, you get your 70 and then it's the dirt nap and it's over. I think that would be very unfortunate. And I think there's enough clues, there are near-death experiences, and we can debate back and forth. Some people will say, well, it's just the hallucinations of a dying mind. But I believe that there's more than just existence here, which to me speaks to the idea of a God. Now, I happen to be of the Christian faith, and even though I'm not by any means devout or probably not to the letter of the law of what many people would consider being a good Christian, I still stick to that faith. But I definitely believe in a higher power. I believe there is something greater than us. And some people will say, and this is not to critique people, hey, my feeling about religion is if you are peaceful in your beliefs and your understanding and accepting of other people, I've often said you could worship a hood ornament. I really wouldn't care. As long as you're kind to other people and you're not violent and you're not trying to impose your beliefs on others, I'm cool. But here's my point. I've heard people say, and I've interviewed people say, well, I believe in the paranormal, but I'm an atheist. And I'm like, how could that be? You know, it just doesn't, one doesn't fit to the other with me. So I'm definitely a believer in a higher power. And I definitely believe there's an afterlife. And exactly what that is, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of rooting for the version where you go to see your family and have basically a big family picnic. I'm hoping that's part of the picture. I'm fascinated by deathbed visitations and deathbed visions. Those are things that absolutely fascinate me. And that's probably the biggest area that interests me in the paranormal because, and I've said this on the show before, we're not all going to see a UFO. We're not all going to see a Bigfoot, but we're all unfortunately going to die. So we're all going to have to face that. So I think that's the big question in my mind. But there are other big questions. UFOs, visitors from other planets. I'm certainly not original in saying this, but I think it's kind of silly to think that we're the only beings in the universe. It's a really big universe. And I said this recently on one of the shows, which may or may not be released yet, but I kind of laugh when people say, well, we couldn't have visitors from outer space because the distances are too vast. Yes, by our science. But what about the science of the 25th century or the science that maybe another species has figured out in some other faraway star system? Do we know if the distances are too vast for them? Do they travel in a totally different way that we can't even conceptualize? I mean, I often use the analogy, if you show now I have an old iPhone, but I have an iPhone 7 here, 7 Plus. If I show that to a caveman, he's going to basically grunt to me that it's impossible. But yeah, and it would have been with the tools. You couldn't have built that with, a stone axe or a stick that you would start a fire with. But with the tools that we have today in 2017 or 2016, it's totally doable. So that's where I come down on UFOs. I think visitations are possible. I think there may be something to this, but I'm leaving a lot of wiggle room here. I'm not 100% convinced, but I think it's very, very possible, and I definitely think our government knows more about what's going on with that than they let on. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe if they told us the truth, we'd all freak out. I don't really speak in a lot of absolutes because there's a saying, and I can't get it right, and I can't remember who said it. I know Scotty Roberts, the author, and and kind of ancient mystery bon vivant has kind of reposted this, and I've seen it. And I can't remember who said it, but basically the idea of it is the older I get, the more I realize I know nothing. Something like that. And I really believe that. I mean, I think wisdom sometimes is realizing that you don't have the answers. That someone else has the answers and it ain't you. Bigfoot, cryptids. Possible. Not ruling it out. I will say a Bigfoot, for example, is one of the things I do tend to be personally a little more skeptical about. But I still think it's possible. I wouldn't rule it out. Same with other cryptids. On the other hand, new species are found in the sea every day. Or probably every day, I'm guessing. So who's to say that there isn't a species out there that we haven't discovered? And I don't believe everybody's making it up. I don't believe that for a minute. Could they be mistaken? Yes. But I don't believe they're all making it up. Not for a minute. Are there people out there saying, I'm a profit seeker, I'm going to become Mr. Bigfoot Hunter to make money? Yeah. There is that in any walk of life, whether it's doctor, lawyer, car salesman, mechanic, whatever it might be. But I don't think that that's the case with everybody. Since I brought that up, the topic of psychics. Now, that's something that sometimes people get a bad rap if they're psychic. People say, charlatan. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, although I think there are charlatans out there. I had asked a psychic one time in an interview, and perhaps you heard this interview, I won't say who it is, but I said to him something to the effect that, some psychics are thought of as charlatans, and then how do you respond to that? And he said, well, I'm sure there's some radio hosts who are charlatans too. To which I say, touche, you got me. That is to say that I think that when you're dealing with psychics, anyone asking for money for something, you have to be careful. And a psychic, for example, I could see if somebody, I don't know, the figure to put on says, you're going to get a reading, you pay me a set amount for that reading, just like you would if, I don't know, you went and got a massage. But if somebody says, long lost Aunt Millie wants to get in touch with you, but you have to give me $1,000 to reach her, then I think your antennae should go up and you should be very, very careful. So personally, I think there's nothing wrong with paying a psychic a reasonable amount for a reading. Nothing wrong with that. But if it becomes an ongoing thing where it's like, well, to give you more information, you have to pay me $500, $1,000, $2,000. I think you got to be very careful with that. Because I think that there are, like anything, there's some bad apples out there. So I think you have to be careful. We had a situation on the show where I tested a psychic and she came through with flying colors. Carol Oakley was on several years ago. Really should get her back on. I always enjoy speaking with her. And I said we had some callers to come on the show to ask if she saw anything. And I had my wife on the other line, but Carol didn't know it was my wife. And said, what do you see for Dar? She says, well, I see a young person. His name's Robert or Bob. And he died very quickly. And he just wanted to say hello. Well, Carol had no way of knowing that my wife's best friend in high school was named Bob. And he committed suicide. Very unexpectedly. No way of knowing that. That's not something, first of all, my wife is not a Facebook person. She hates social media. So there was no way to research her. I certainly never mentioned it on any of the shows. And that was a dead-on hit by Carol Oakley. So I believe there's something to psychics. I believe there's something to it. Is everyone who says they're psychic really psychic? I don't think so. Does everyone who says that they're a good money manager, for example, a good money manager or a good doctor or a good car mechanic, are they all good at what they do? And even though they say they're good? No, it's just like anything else in life. So as they say, buyer beware, but that doesn't mean I want to see how many cliches I can use in this show. Doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. Ghosts. I think that goes into the afterlife. I believe there are ghosts. I believe there are a couple of kinds of ghosts. I believe there's a replay element to ghosts, kind of like a residual haunting, like a tape that's not erased. But then I think maybe there's some sentient ghosts who want to get in touch with us. The Ouija board. What do I think of the Ouija board? Well, I'll put it to you this way. With all apologies to Parker Brothers. I look at the Ouija board as like a chainsaw. Now, a chainsaw is a fine tool. People can cut down forests. My goodness, in the wake of some natural disaster like we're seeing this week, they can cut down trees and clear a path. And in the hands of an expert, they can be used to make beautiful ice sculptures, sculptures out of wood. There's amazing things people can do with chainsaws. You put a chainsaw in my hand, and you're going to cut your arm off. So let me be clear. This is just for me. I'm not telling you not to use Ouija boards or play with Ouija boards. But for me, I am not expert in it, so I would be afraid that I'm opening some kind of portal. However, other people disagree. Karen Dahlman, who I think is very, very interesting and very knowledgeable on the Ouija board, and we've had her on the shows and done a Plus Club webinar with her. Excellent interview and very knowledgeable. She says, no, as long as you use it the right way, you're fine. So I allow others to differ. Just for me, I don't think I'm going to be using one. So I thought I would just do this as something to separate the 500th episode, because it is a milestone. 500 episodes, 12 years. And it's been a fun run, and if I have my way, Wednesdays I'll be talking to you about episode 1000. If you keep listening and my health holds up, and the sponsors keep sponsoring, and the Plus Club people keep participating, we're going to do this for a long time. I've often thought that I'd like to do this at least another 15 years. I mean, this is my career. This is what I do. And I just wanted to do two things in this segment. One, kind of give you my thoughts on the paranormal, because I never really do that a lot on the show, because the show is about the guests. Doesn't matter what I think. Just because I have someone on doesn't mean I endorse them. It just means I want to give them the opportunity to share their thoughts with you, and you decide. And that's the way I think it should be. But the point is, people say, Jim, what do you think? And when we did this a few years ago on the campfire, it was popular. So I thought it was a good time to do it again. I hope I didn't offend anybody. And then secondly, I wanted to say thank you to a lot of people. And if there's anybody I've missed, I mean, my goodness, I'm sure there's people I've missed. There have been some great people. Some of the people I've worked with on advertising have become friends. People at different media companies. I've gotten to meet some great people. Some of the authors have become friends. My co-hosts in the past, Micah Hanks, Clayton Morris, Kate Patello from Weird News Radio, when we did that together. Those guys have been fantastic to work with. And each one of them in their own right has taught me a lot. So, 500 episodes. I think at this point, all we can say is, here's hoping for 500 more. We'll do our best. And stay tuned. Thank you. And stay spooky. We'll talk to you on Paranormal Podcast 501. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.